Hello and welcome to the Avid Media Composer tutorial part 5, and in this tutorial I just wanted to cover a few tips, tricks and editing techniques for editing in Avid on the timeline. So in the previous tutorial we looked at the overwrite and the splice in tools, which were the yellow arrow here and the red arrow here for overwrite and splice in, and they can also be found down here. And the other two tools that we also looked at were the ripple trim and the overwrite trim, which was the red and yellow trim tools down here, and the add edit tool. There's another technique you can use to edit as well directly on the timeline in Avid. Another tip to keep in your pocket whilst you're editing, and that is basically we've got our clips on our timeline. So if we've got our position indicator, we can actually directly create in points like when we created subclips. So if we go to here and mark an in point, that puts an in point in where our position indicator is centered. And that's where we want our cut. And if we move our position indicator over, and we can set an out point, so it's the same as an in point, just found up here, mark out. We can now set a mark out point, which has now created this kind of this mark here. So basically what we can do at this point is we can perform two functions here. So going back to what we spoke about lift and extract tools, we have our lift and we have our extract, which are very similar to the overwrite and the splice in. They just work in the opposite way to the timeline. So now that we've made our in and out points on our timeline to our video and audio, if we select our lift function, you'll notice now we've actually made a cut and removed that portion of clip which contained audio and video where our in and out points were, and in space of it now is just black video. So that is one way to make cuts. And then if we wanted to seal this black, we just select our yellow arrow tool there, which is our splice in and extract tool, and then click that, and now we've actually cleared that black space and got rid of it. So if we come back, just Command Z, I just wanted to show the alternative process. So if we use our extract tool, which again is marked yellow, and we spoke in the previous tutorial that any kind of yellow tools or extract tools, which we find here, or the ripple trim, they actually are more non-destructive. So basically they don't affect clips either side of them, so they actually work like a ripple edit, like the ripple trim down here does. So if we click on the extract tool, we've now performed an edit and sealed the gap straight away, which is something the lift tool didn't, and that left us the black video. So you can use either two, but this is just an alternative way to make edits on your timeline. And what's really useful about the in and out tool is you can make edits between clips. So you can edit two at the same time. So it's one way to save time when you're editing as well, which is very useful. So moving on from that, I also wanted to showcase how to create basically customizable edit option keys in your Avid whilst you're working. And the way to do that is if you go to Settings, which is here, our Settings tab at the top of our main project panel, we can scroll down and we can go to Keyboard, which can be found here. So we want to load that up, and then we get the Avid keyboard layout set. One good thing to note actually is you've actually got, for those of you who want to get used to using shortcut keys, all your shortcut key functions for everything we spoke about can be found here. So you notice a few familiar things already. You've got the lift and extract tools, so those were these here and here, and then we've got our splice in and our overwrite tools, which can be found down here and here. And unfortunately the trim tool's not here, but if we want to use in and out points, we've got them here as well. So mark in, mark out, as well as other tools which you'll find throughout the tutorial, like the quick transition if you want to add transitions. But what I generally like to do is I like to make my editing experience a bit more easier is, let's just pick one example. One thing we don't have on this keyboard is the Add Edit tool, which was located here in your timeline button. It's just a button in your timeline window. So if we want to make that custom change, the first thing we can do after we've loaded this keyboard option up in our settings here, you want to go to Tools, and then we want to go to Command Palette, and then load that up. And now we have our Command Palette options. Now, when we make changes to the default layout to the keyboard, you have to make sure that your button-to-button reassignment is active here, or else you will not be able to make changes. So, we want to look for our Edit tab, and you'll find your Add Edit key here. So we can map that key by hovering our mouse over that and dragging it. I generally like to drag it over to the keyboard C, so C for cut, so I think that's quite nice. And now we have, as you see, it adds it straight away, it updates real time. So if we close these two windows down, if I use my C shortcut, I now have Command Control directly on the keyboard of my cut tool, as you can see right here. So very useful. So that same technique works for all the other keys in your Avid. So if you want to spend some time customizing them, I'd suggest you do that as well. Oh, brilliant. Okay, well, thank you very much for watching part 5. I will see you later.